The real concern lies in what happens afterward. He predicts that once the presentation is over, a battle will begin among the shadow clubs over who will take control of Istus. Our boy practices intensely but suddenly collapses. The mental rebound technique, which quickly increases magical output, is extremely risky. It drains all mental strength at once, requires 20 minutes of recovery, and then repeats the process. On Everest, the energy used per spell is equal to 40 minutes of focus, while making it a life-threatening method. He realizes his professor would be furious if she knew, but he still isn't satisfied with his progress. After all his effort, he can only maintain his magic for about 5.5 minutes. With just a week left until the presentation, our guy continues training. To reach 10 full minutes, he knows he must push himself to the limit, even if it risks his consciousness. He wonders if he can truly do it. Nate arrives while asking about his progress, and our boy confidently assures him that he will be ready soon. He acknowledges the difficulty of the task while admitting that it's far beyond what a Class 5 should handle. However, if Shirone fails, their club will suffer. Our hero reassures him and shifts the focus to Nade's work. Nade confirms that he is about to test his project and invites Shirone over. They soon notice Iruki, who appears exhausted. Concerned, our boy asks if he is all right, and Nade questions whether he has slept at all. Iruki dismisses their worries, determined to finish on time. Our guy realizes that there is no stopping him now, calling his dedication madness. Then, Nade reveals something, which our boy identifies as a prototype. Laughing, Nade explains that the final step requires testing the fiber optic cable Iruki's father sent. He instructs Shirone to grab it and use magic. When Shirone follows the instructions, he is stunned by the results. Nade, satisfied, remarks that it turned out just as they had imagined. As the presentation nears, Nade looks for Shirone and finally spots him. Excitedly, he exclaims that our boy has succeeded. Laughing, our guy confidently responds that it's time to show everyone what they have accomplished. At the Paranormal Science Club, the day of the presentation arrives, and the students eagerly gather. Many express their excitement, while others remind everyone to grab snacks and stand in an orderly line. A boy brings the school's special cherry juice and someone calls out not to forget the flyers. Mark arrives and, noticing the large crowd, questions the reason for the gathering. A girl hands him a flyer and instructs him to get in line. He thanks her, feeling confused, and then examines the flyer. Noticing the childish design, he assumes a kid must have drawn it. However, when he reads the names on the poster, he is shocked. He immediately recognizes one, realizing it's a name he could never forget. Dismissing the event as a joke, he doubts anyone would be interested. He had expected better. Maria then appears and, while noticing Shirone's name, excitedly suggests they go watch. She insists that Mark must be attending and urges him to join her. Though hesitant, he agrees while thinking he might learn something. Excited, she pulls him toward the line. During their suspension, Maria and Mark had received special lessons from Professor Thad. However, Mark had intentionally placed himself between Maria and Thad. Meanwhile, some girls in the crowd notice senior students and curiously point them out. One identifies them as Amy and Serial, while questioning why seniors would attend a lower-grade presentation. Another girl reminds them that our boy is Amy's boyfriend. Amy, clearly uncomfortable, complains about having to attend. Serial, slightly annoyed, reminds her that she has asked the same question multiple times. Since her boyfriend is presenting, it only makes sense for her to be there. Amy, regretting her situation, mutters that it remains embarrassing no matter how many times it happens. As the crowd grows, someone notices a student from Class 1, which surprises many since they rarely appear at such events. Serial suddenly spots someone and nudges Amy while pointing out Fermi. She wonders why he would attend and realizes he isn't alone. Alongside him stand Herky from Sonar, Rykon the electric monster, Richard the alchemist, and Caden. Confused by their presence, she questions what is happening. Amy then asks if Serial knows what all these individuals have in common. When Serial appears puzzled, Amy confidently reveals that they are all rumored to be members of a secretive group that is the Shadow Club's Golden Circle. At the auditorium, the professor notices the headmaster and curiously asks what brings him there. He responds that the three boys have worked hard for this day, and he couldn't help but feel curious. She welcomes him and offers him a seat. Chuckling, he takes his place, eager to see what they have prepared. Meanwhile, the students, filled with excitement, scramble for seats. Some call out that all spots are taken, while others urge the crowd not to push. Amy, while feeling uncertain, wonders if there is something about the presentation that she is overlooking. Soon, an announcement echoes through the auditorium, officially beginning the Paranormal Science Club's long-awaited presentation. The students turn their attention to the stage as the event unfolds. However, 30 minutes later, disappointment spreads through the audience. Some murmur in frustration while regretting their expectations. A few express disbelief, admitting they had hoped for more from Class 5. Others complain that attending was a waste of time. Feeling deceived, Several accuse the presenters of completely tricking them. The presentation of the Paranormal Science Club begins, and the audience erupts in cheer. Nade smiles and thanks everyone for attending. He introduces himself as the club president and mentions that he will be leading the presentation. He explains that the main topic for the day is spirits. Maria appears extremely excited, while Mark, on the other hand, looks irritated and wonders aloud if a spirit is something like a ghost. Nade continues, warning that viewers might be scared and advises them to be careful while watching. Suddenly, the chandeliers start changing colors, and the screen behind him lights up. Headmaster Alpheus smiles and comments that the students seem well prepared. Sienna silently agrees, thinking that the hologram background is a great idea, but she wonders what the students are planning next. At that moment, an image of school appears on the screen. Nade asks if anyone has heard the story behind the school's construction. He explains that 520 years ago, the area was originally a small farming village. However, during a famous war of conquest, everyone, including civilians and soldiers who did not want to fight, took refuge deep in the mountains. As he speaks, the lights suddenly go out. It shocks the students. Nade resumes, revealing that non-human entities had appeared in history. A loud scream echoes through the hall. Some whisper among themselves, trying to convince each other that nothing scary will happen. Just then, a foot appears on the screen. Nade explains that it belongs to a person possessed by an evil spirit. The students burst out laughing as they recognize Iruki, who appears like an evil spirit, running across the stage before crawling back into the wings. Sariel laughs loudly, finding it amusing, while Amy, sitting next to her, looks confused and wonders if this is a presentation or a play. Nade continues the story, and suddenly he dramatically runs out from the stands, appearing in pain and calling out for Alia, while claiming that he lost the most precious person to him while escaping the war. Maria, deep in thought, speculates that he must have lost his lover while running away. Mark remains speechless, questioning if this is still a presentation. Just as he is thinking, a voice suddenly comes out, calling for Noah. The unexpected call makes Mark choke in surprise. A worried blonde girl runs backstage, screaming for Noah. The students react with loud gasps, and the female students blush. Everyone immediately recognizes her as Shirone, and the male students laugh. Miss Sienna gasps in shock, while Head Mai smiles. Sariel is also surprised to see Shirone pretending to be a woman. She turns around and notices Amy blushing and gaping in disbelief. She looks speechless, while Sariel quickly tries to calm her. Meanwhile, Nade dramatically shouts, expressing how much he misses Alia. As the scene unfolds, the audience watches closely, anticipating what will happen next. Two characters lean closer to each other, their faces almost touching. Thad's expression darkens, and Maria covers her face, unable to believe what she is seeing. The students gasp and wait for what will happen next. At the most dramatic moment, Iruki, playing the evil spirit, suddenly appears behind Nade and bites his shoulder. The students freeze in shock, their eyes wide with horror. Nade screams for help and the hall plunges into darkness. Maria looks around nervously, admitting that it is a little scary. Mark, trying not to tremble, swallows hard. A light suddenly shines on Nade, who returns to normal. Holding up a notebook, he explains that 6 months ago, researchers discovered an old diary while studying the history of the academy. Their research revealed a shocking truth that some souls, after being infected by evil spirits, turned evil themselves, and now wander the earth, seeking bodies to possess. Nade is about to continue when a bell rings behind him, making the students uneasy. Some whisper that the bell usually rings at midnight, but it is not even 7 yet. Nade explains that when the light disappears at midnight, evil spirits will appear. Maria and Mark frown slightly in fear. Nade reassures the audience, while telling them that they have likely never seen an evil spirit at night, because spirits only reveal themselves to those they choose. However, after watching this presentation, the audience might become more curious about them, or even attuned to their presence. He suggests that when the midnight bell rings, they should look around to see if any spirits are near. The students react with a mix of fear and disbelief. Some exclaim that they are too scared, while others argue that it is impossible. One student worries about staying in the library until midnight. Nade smiles while saying that if they are lucky, they might get to see a real spirit. With that, he concludes the presentation. As the lights return, silence fills the hall. A student from the audience suddenly speaks up, reacting in disbelief. Immediately, crumpled paper bags are thrown onto the stage, and the students' voices echo in frustration. Some complain that there were no real findings, and that it was foolish to believe in Shirone and Iruki. Others express embarrassment, feeling that they had expected something more serious. Amy stands up angrily, feeling humiliated, and storms out, saying that she knew this would happen when her so-called boyfriend got involved with these strange people. Sariel runs after her, calling her name. One by one, the first-year students leave without saying anything. Sienna quickly bows to the principal, apologizing and promising to punish the students involved. However, Headmaster waves his hand dismissively, saying that since it is a paranormal group, their approach is understandable. Sienna sighs, wondering if she was wrong to trust them. Meanwhile, the headmaster silently watches the audience and thinks that if it was going to end this way, they should not have started in the first place. In the wings, Nade laughs heartily and asks Iruki if he saw the students' expressions. Iruki smiles and replies that it was obvious from their eyes that they were affected. As the students leave, trying to hide their fear, Iruki remarks that the seed has been planted. Behind him, Shirone removes his wig and declares that step 1 was successful. Now it is time to show them what a real spirit looks like. Now at the Magic Academy, the clock shows 11:30. Nade walks in and tells Shirone that it is time, and asks if he has completed the meditation. Shirone turns around, nods, and leaves with Nade. A day earlier, Nade installs hundreds of ghost-dimensional projectors around the school. These projectors are programmed to predict Iruki's actions. Shirone enters the room and Nade reminds him to walk carefully. Iruki looks at the clock and states that there are 5 minutes and 15 seconds left until midnight. He instructs them to wait for 9 seconds, emphasizing that they cannot be too early or too late. They must show the ghost exactly at midnight. Iruki raises his hand and signals them to proceed. Nade turns to Shirone and tells him it is his turn, as everything depends on him. Shirone nods. Iruki checks his watch and confirms they are ready. Nade hears the command and prepares to place his hand on the button. At that moment, Iruki shouts for them to begin. Shirone immediately infuses magic into the ball in his hand, releasing a powerful golden light. Iruki watches and acknowledges Shirone's progress, noting how much he has developed his magic in just 1 month. Nade is pleased and praises Shirone as expected. However, Shirone suddenly frowns and finds the situation strange. He describes it as if he is pouring water into a bottomless bowl. Nade turns around in shock and asks if something is wrong. He shouts in alarm, demanding to know what is happening. Iruki quickly asks about the issue. Nade, with tears in his eyes, reports that the energy output has not increased. Iruki is stunned and questions how this could happen. He asks if they can fix it. Nade, frustrated, admits that he does not know, as his calculations were perfect. He wonders aloud what is going wrong. Suddenly they discover that the energy transmission line has been chewed by rats. Iruki sighs, looks at the clock, and declares that it is over and they have failed. Nade lowers his head and blames himself, calling himself careless and incapable of properly assembling the device. Iruki frowns, while Nade, in tears, apologizes for getting everyone involved and for making them a laughingstock. He promises to take full responsibility at any cost. However, Shirone stops him and insists that they all worked hard, sacrificing their sleep and efforts. He acknowledges Nade and Iruki's dedication and refuses to let it end like this. Shirone opens the spiritual field. Iruki frowns and warns Nade to stop him. Nade, confused, does not understand what our guy is doing. Suddenly, Nade realizes in shock that our dude is about to use his immortality. Shirone opens his eyes and enters his own spirit zone. In reality, Nade and Iruki desperately try to pull him back. They beg him to stop, warning that he will disappear if he continues. Nade, in tears, pleads with Shirone, saying that they can abandon the research group because he does not want to lose him. However, our guy smiles and reassures Nade that he is no longer afraid. He grits his teeth and looks forward, recalling the words of Mr. Armin. He declares that he will not disappear. A beam of light pulls him forward as he resolves to remember who he is. He refuses to run away anymore. At the moment when it seems Shirone will vanish, he suddenly returns to his original form. Outside, a huge light shines. Nade, worried, asks if Shirone is okay. Struggling, Shirone manages to say that they should head out. Iruki understands and immediately calls for Nade. Nade hurries back to the console and is stunned to see the energy output has already increased. Holding back tears, he turns on the switch and shouts to Iruki. Though Iruki is concerned, he still activates the controller in his hand. Meanwhile, in the girls' dormitory, Maria sits at her desk, closes her book, and decides to sleep since she has class the next day. However, she suddenly shudders as a memory resurfaces. She recalls the ghost story about midnight and wonders if she will really see ghosts. Smiling, she looks out the window and dismisses the idea, saying there is no such thing as spirits in the world. At that moment, outside her window, an evil spirit monster appears. Seeing its grotesque face, Maria is startled. In another room, Amy panics, grabs a vase of flowers, and throws it at the window, demanding to know what the entity is and how it got inside. The evil spirit in front of her laughs. Amy shivers in fear, thinking if it is just smiling at her. She immediately screams and runs out of the room in terror. As soon as she reaches the hallway, she encounters Sariel, who too shouts in fear, claiming that she has also seen a ghost. Both of them turn around in fear, realizing the horrifying truth. At that moment, other girls rush out of their rooms, as they meet a group of evil spirits behind them. Fear spreads throughout the dormitory as the girls scream and run, terrified of the ghosts. Not only the female dormitories but other buildings also light up. Panic spreads as the sounds of screaming fill the air. A group of evil spirits rushes forward, and students run around, shouting for help. Some look up at the sky, wondering why the spirits keep chasing them. The entire academy becomes chaotic in an instant. Younger students cry out of fear, while older students try to show off their strength, urging everyone to fight back. However, the number of evil spirits suddenly increases 2 or 3 times, making the students huddle together in terror. Just as panic reaches its peak, the spirits vanish without a trace. A student notices something and exclaims that there is someone on the roof. Everyone turns their gaze upward and sees 3 students, Shirone, Iruki and Nade, standing above, clapping. Nade cheerfully comments that their presentation is finally happening with an audience. Before he can finish his sentence, a furious voice interrupts. Sienna rushes over, angrily grabbing something as she yells for them to come down. She demands to know why the academy is in chaos in the middle of the night, explaining that she was in the shower and was completely startled. Nade mischievously smiles and remarks that it is a beautiful night. By now the students understand that the ghosts are mere holographic projections. Just then, laughter echoes through the air. Sienna turns to the headmaster in surprise, asking his reason to be here. He smiles and replies that he believes the presentation is not over yet, and asks everyone to listen until the end. Nade takes this opportunity to speak, explaining that their research team has been investigating the existence of spirits. He asks if they believe in supernatural phenomena. The students react angrily, calling them frauds and accusing them of using simple tricks. Some whisper among themselves, questioning how the holograms moved so realistically. As debates continue, the headmaster conjures a small ghost with magic and laughs, challenging the students to explain how the trick was performed. Sienna comments that their prank is quite advanced. Shirone, standing above, smiles, thinking that intelligence is a magician's most valuable asset, and curiosity will always draw people in. Some 4th grade students express their frustration at being fooled by 5th graders, but admit they cannot figure out the mechanism behind the trick. Sienna acknowledges that their stunt was well executed but insists it is not enough to earn recognition for their club. The headmaster, however, smiles and says that the trick itself is not what matters. Sienna does not seem to understand, while the students remain skeptical. They argue that the spirits are fake since they lack souls, questioning what fake souls have to do with supernatural research. Nade laughs and points out that despite their disbelief, they were all frightened. He asks them to consider what they were running away from if spirits do not exist. The students fall silent. Amy and Sariel exchange glances deep in thought. Nade continues, explaining that their emotions, like the fear they felt, are at the heart of scientific research on supernatural souls. He argues that even those who claim not to believe in spirits experience doubt when faced with the unknown. Shirone and Iruki smile at each other, acknowledging that the question of whether spirits exist remains unanswered. Nade states that their research focuses on exploring that doubt, because that is what science is about. The students begin to reconsider. Some reflect on how knowledge once dismissed as false later became accepted as truth. Nade raises his hand and declares that their experiment has demonstrated the value of their research team. The 3 students bow in unison, marking the end of their presentation on the science of supernatural souls. Some students exchange surprised looks, while others burst into laughter. Eventually, cheers erupt. Excited voices fill the air, praising the research team for their impressive work. Some admit they would not mind being fooled like this again. The teachers observe the enthusiastic students, and the headmaster comments that the presentation holds significance. At that moment, Professor Thad walks out and gently remarks that he has no objections. Sienna sighs and, after a moment of consideration, announces that the professors have decided to officially recognize the club. Iruki, Nade, and Shirone rejoice. But before they can celebrate further, Sienna suddenly raises her voice and declares that they will all be suspended from school for 3 days. She scolds them, calling them idiots, but the 3 do not seem to care. They hug each other, overjoyed at their success. Below, the students continue congratulating them. Despite Sienna's stern warning, Maria smiles brightly and comments that Shirone is truly impressive. Mark, standing beside her, agrees, calling Shirone a genius. Sariel also expresses admiration, saying that everyone dreams of doing something remarkable at least once in their lives. Amy remains silent for a moment before smiling to herself. She thinks about how, while she focuses on her studies to graduate, they are spending time on what she considers a pointless pursuit. Meanwhile, Nade sobs, and Shirone, feeling emotional, watches their reactions. In another corner, some students speak with disdain, criticizing the club. They argue about the hierarchy within the academy's various research groups, questioning if they should take the supernatural studies seriously. One student remarks that the 5th graders will graduate soon, advising others to leave if they do not want to face them next year. Among the murmurs, a voice calmly advises everyone to stop arguing, warning that attracting attention now would only bring trouble. Another student smirks, suggesting that waiting for the right opportunity would be more beneficial. Meanwhile, Sienna silently observes the group and sighs, thinking to herself that those troublesome students in that unconventional research group and clubs need to grow up. The headmaster is quite impressed by Shirone's magic, smiles, and says it is impressive. Even he, a specialist in light magic by how it was used, is impressive. Looking up at the sky, he admires Shirone. He believes that in the future, our boy might be capable of fulfilling his dreams. Meanwhile, our guy lies on the grass, grinning with happiness. Next to him, Nade asks with concern if he is really okay. Shirone reassures him that he is fine. Iruki, smiling, says who would risk their life for a game though it was great. Nade agrees, explaining that without Shirone's immortal ability, it wouldn't have worked. Iruki appreciates the way our guy has dealt with the immortal function with the defensive spirit zone. Shirone insists that they are geniuses too. Iruki has predicted how the entire school will react, and Nade has built large numbers of machines. Iruki resembles it with a term, big fish in a small pond. The three lie down on the grass. They tease our guy for being so humble. Shirone looks up at the sky again and with a bright shine in his eyes, says that he wants to reach higher, like the shining North Star above. Iruki asks if it is time to think about senior class now that they have played enough. Nade suddenly sits up excitedly, saying that they must graduate together. Once they step into the real world after graduation, they will have even more fun. Shirone, surprised by the mention of society, falls silent. Nade lifts his hand and, smiling, says they must promise to go all the way together. The three put their hands together in the center. Iruki asks what they should have a motto to boost their spirits and seal their promise. Nade cheerfully replies that they can use anything. The three raise their hands in the air and shout the mottos like "Long Live Paranormal Science Club." Their plan to graduate together. Then, they burst into laughter. Nade points at Iruki and asks why he is cheering for something so silly. Shirone smiles happily, thinking that together, they will become the strongest mages together. At midnight, the school grounds still hold the energy of the three friends. The next morning in the boys' dormitory, Nade shakes Shirone, trying to wake him up. He tells him not to waste his suspension time and to go out and play. Iruki beside them comments that Shirone must be exhausted. Even when shaken, Shirone does not open his eyes. He feels trapped in sleep paralysis, unable to move. Once again, our guy sinks deep into his own spirit zone. He sees himself drifting toward infinity in the dark space, moving alongside the stars. At the end of his path, a massive galaxy surrounded by swirling light awaits him. But this time, something feels different. Normally, he would wake up by now, but something has changed. Suddenly, rays of light appear, creating cracks in the darkness. Shirone looks ahead in surprise as a burst of bright light flashes. Our guy suddenly wakes up. He realizes that his dream was different this time. Looking around, he wonders if what happened yesterday caused this change. He silently stares at the ceiling, feeling like something is different. Getting up, he immediately checks the paper on Nade and Iruki's desk. They have left a note that they are going to the casino and Iruki's calculation skills will help them. Our guy sighs, figuring out that they will probably come back empty-handed again. With 3 days of suspension ahead, our guy wonders what to do. He considers going home, but rejects this idea while thinking about the reaction of his parents. Deciding to keep his suspension a secret, he dresses neatly and stands in front of the mirror, smiling. He suddenly remembers something he has really wanted to do. As he steps away, his heart pounds for no reason. Unnoticed by him, his reflection in the mirror changes and a beam of light identical to him appears. Later, our guy stands in front of an old bookstore. He hesitates before reaching for the doorknob, thinking about how he has spent years studying without a break. Now he just wants to buy a novel for himself. He misses those days. A memory comes back, one where he was not allowed to touch books. He is scared if someone stops him again. Taking a deep breath, he finally opens the door. As soon as he enters, the shop owner greets him warmly, smiling brightly. The owner jokingly asks if Shirone has come to deliver goods. Startled, our guy quickly clarifies that he is here to buy a book. The shopkeeper remains cheerful, telling him to take his time and search. She suddenly comments on how handsome he is. Shirone, speechless, thanks her, thinking she probably does not even recognize him at all. He picks up a book and wonders if he has really changed that much. After paying 2 gold coins, the shopkeeper beams with joy, calling him generous and thanking him excitedly. Shirone lifts the book, The Dragon Tamer Who Slayed the Dragon King, toward the sky, thrilled to have finally bought his own novel. Spinning around with happiness, he does not notice the shy glances people give him. Feeling lucky that he still has money from Ojeni family, Shirone walks with a smile. Just then, a voice calls out his name and a hand grabs his arm, making him shocked. A pink-haired girl appears and asks if he is Shirone. He stammers, confused, and asks who she is. Ignoring his question, she turns and calls out to others, confirming his identity. Shirone, still in shock, slowly recognizes her. A long time ago, while reading, he had been approached by a group of friends. Now those friends have grown up. Seeing him, they happily call his name. Our guy exclaims in surprise, recognizing one of them. Rumina smiles and teases him for forgetting her face. Shirone awkwardly admits that he didn't recognize her at first, saying she has become very pretty. Rumina pouts, recalling that when they were younger, Shirone told her something different. Shirone, feeling shy, nervously laughs, trying to brush it off. The other friends gather around, chatting excitedly. They comment on how noble he looks, wondering if his outfit is expensive. They are amazed at how much he has changed. Our guy, feeling a little overwhelmed, does not know how to respond. At that moment, another person approaches. He is the leader of the village children, Altor. He smiles and greets Shirone, saying it has been a long time since they last saw each other. He asks how he has been, mentioning that even when he asked Mr. Vincent but got no answers. Shirone, unsure of what to say, thinks for a moment. He realizes that they will find out eventually. If he lies, it might hurt them, especially Altor. Making up his mind, he decides to tell the truth. He simply says that he has been studying at the Magic Academy. Everyone is shocked hearing this. Altor's expression changes slightly, showing a hint of annoyance. Altor has a strong body and a generous personality, so he naturally becomes the leader. When he is 10 years old, he sees Shirone reading a book and asks if he is reading again. Seeing Shirone with a book, Altor frowns immediately, finding the words overwhelming. The friends around start whispering, calling Shirone smart since they don't even know how to read books like that. Hearing this, Altor picks up Shirone's book and questions why he is reading when he doesn't even go to school. He insists that training strength is more useful for society, especially in a small mountain village where danger is common. There, everyone follows a rule to obey the leader. From that day on, whenever such a situation arises, Shirone simply smiles and agrees, knowing that this prevents further conflict. Seeing Shirone agree, Altor returns the book. He then declares that he is going to play soccer and invites him to join. Just then, a loud voice rings out and Rumina, a 10-year-old girl, yells at Altor, accusing him of bullying Shirone. Altor tries to defend himself, but Rumina keeps scolding him, reminding him that Shirone is still recovering from an illness. Annoyed, Altor snaps back, saying this is why no one wants to be with her. Now, in present, Shirone laughs, remembering these moments from childhood. Later, Altor and others curious about Shirone's studies, asks if he really goes to school and if he knows how to use magic. They excitedly demand proof. Shirone explains that he has only recently started learning magic and is not fluent yet. Moreover, using magic outside the academy is against the rules. Altor laughs and teases Shirone for still carrying books around. He tries to peek inside Shirone's book, thinking it belongs to the Magic Academy. Shirone panics, trying to stop him, and hurriedly explains that it is just a novel. In the struggle, the book falls, and Shirone instinctively moves at lightning speed to catch it, surprising everyone. Rumina once again blames Altor for bullying Shirone. Altor, confused, insists that he did nothing. Shirone smiles and reassures them that it was just a coincidence, but Rumina remains unconvinced, frowning as she scolds him again. To change the mood, Rumina suggests going to eat delicious food. Altor agrees, suggesting they are celebrating a sale of the entire stock by holding a party and asks Shirone to join. He happily agrees. As a horse-drawn carriage arrives, Altor effortlessly picks up Shirone and places him in the front row. Shirone, startled, asks if he can really lift him so easily. Altor laughs and replies that Shirone is too light. Shirone, in disbelief, thinks about how much Altor has changed and become stronger than ever, and even involved in business. There is a high possibility that Altor will become the village's new leader. Watching him, our boy falls into thought. When they arrive at Rumina's house, her mother, who runs a restaurant, is surprised to see Shirone and compliments his appearance. Embarrassed, Rumina quickly tells her mother to stop. At the dining table, everyone raises their glasses and cheers for our dude. A table full of delicious food appears, and Rumina encourages Shirone to eat. He asks about the drink and she tells him that it's a fizzy barley drink. As the conversation shifts to Shirone's school life, a friend asks if he is the best student there. The unexpected question startles Shirone. The others, curious, ask if he studies with nobles. Shirone, overwhelmed, insists that he is too busy studying to notice such things. Meanwhile, Rumina silently watches everyone, including Altor, who drinks his beer quietly. Altor then sets his beer cup down firmly and asks if Shirone has thought about his future. He reminds Shirone that his father is currently supporting their family, but soon, it will be Shirone's turn to take responsibility and even get married.